Welcome back to the Broncos Avenue Podcast. I'm your host, Amir, with my co-host, Jordan. And today's very special guest, we have Mike Klis, Broncos insider and sports reporter for 9 News, on today to talk all things Broncos and everything coming up in the upcoming draft here in late April as we enter draft month. Super excited to get all this out for you guys today. And, first, before we jump into everything and more, Mike, how are you doing today, man? It's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you. I'm working with my mystery mockster to put out the Broncos draft here today.
Awesome.
So we'll go to 9 News for that. And once again, George Paton has left the mystery mockster with a challenge by not having that first and second round pick again. In aggregate, the loss for Russell Wilson and Sean Payton were 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks.
Yeah.
So the mystery mockster not happy about that, but he's pretty good about finding mid-round gems historically. So we'll see where he goes here.
Okay. Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for taking time out of your morning. I know you're a busy guy and, hopping on the show. Really do appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, he has been covering the Denver Broncos for 18 years now. Became a Broncos beat writer for the Denver Post in 2005 after previously covering the Colorado Rockies for a good amount of time. So it's good to have him here in Broncos country. 10 years later, he was then hired as the Broncos insider for 9 News, where he still resides. So thank you so much for being on today's show. My first question for you today is kind of obviously with the whole new trade for Sean Payton and the hire and everything. What is kind of the feeling that you're getting in the building right now? Because last season we I wouldn't say it's a false sense of hope, but at the same time, Hackett didn't pan out as head coach and Russell Wilson didn't perform to expectations. Offense underperformed all season with those two. Is there a different kind of building opposed to last year with a hungry Russell Wilson and proven head coach and Sean Payton?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, the players haven't, the only players that have been around are those that have been injured and come in for treatment. And even those guys can work out on their own this time of year. So they don't gather till April 11th. So the vibe in the building is just executives, administrators, coaches. The vibe around Broncos country is no more goofing around. It's all about winning. And, Sean Payton has made some statements, some subtle ones, like, there are no coordinator interviews. We all would have liked to have interviewed Vance Joseph after he was here as a head coach for a couple of years, and he comes back as a defensive coordinator. All these free agents they signed, McGlinchey, Powers, they've been available for interviews one-on-one, but there's been, the Broncos haven't had any interviews. So it's the message is they're getting to work. There'll be enough time later on for that. But for right now, it's time to get to work, learn a new system, learn the new Sean Payton way, and go about turning the Broncos into a winner again after really a 7-year drought that they've had from the playoffs. Second longest in the NFL. It's hard to believe. Only the Jets have a longer playoff drought than the Broncos. The Broncos, the last time they were there, they went all the way and won Super Bowl 15 or Super Bowl 50. So the drought doesn't seem that long, but it is. And 6 straight losing seasons. It's all about Sean Payton to the rescue, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike, Sean made a lot of hires this offseason, a lot of, kind of former player coaches and veteran guys just got a whole bunch of experience. Who, in your opinion, besides Sean Payton, was your favorite hire?
Well, I like Vance Joseph as defensive coordinator. He's familiar here. He's a proven coordinator. What I took note of is there's a lot of experience at special teams and defense. But there's not a whole lot of experience on offense. And, Sean Payton's going to run the offense. So now he has Joe Lombardi as his offensive coordinator, plenty of experience there. But Declan Doyle at tight ends, first time he's going to be a full-time tight end coach. Zach Strief, offensive line, he basically is coming from the broadcast booth to coaching offensive linemen. Kerry Colbert is inexperienced at the NFL level as receiver coach. So it's interesting how he put the offensive staff together to where he's going to kind of form them, and they're all going to follow Sean Payton's lead and do it his way. And then he's going to kind of leave the defense to, Vance Joseph. And then they just hired Joe Vitt as the senior coordinator. So they've got a lot of good leadership on the defensive side. They brought back Christian Parker and Marcus Dixon on that defense. Special teams with Mike Westhoff, 75 years old, back as a special teams assistant coach. Ben Kotwika, a lot of experience. And then I guess I'm finally going to get to my two favorite. They hired two players right off the field. Chris Banjo going to be an assistant special teamer, and Davis Webb's going to be the quarterback's coach. Those are two very highly unusual to come from the field right to the coaching ranks. To go from the locker room to the second floor, if you will, at Broncos headquarters. And so those are definitely the most interesting hires.
Yeah, I really do like the Davis Webb hire a lot, and I would have to agree with you on that. Interesting, move there, but I really do like that move a lot for Russell Wilson in this offense. And my next question is for you, regarding free agency. What is kind of your take on how George Paton addressed the positional needs in free agency? We knew that he was going to be aggressive just because just the fact in itself that they only have 5 picks in this upcoming draft. What is kind of your take on how they address the positional needs in free agency, and how would you grade George Paton's free agency, third free agency as a general manager?
Yeah, it was George Paton. It was, I think there was more of a Sean Payton effect in the free agent signings. So what I got out of it was, even though they spent the most money, and they did spend more than, as far as total value and contract, 33% more than the next most team in the NFL. So they spent a lot of money. And what I got out of it is they got themselves some men, some grinders up front. They paid McGlinchey at right tackle. We all know it's been a swinging gate at right tackle. He'll be the 11th starting right tackle in 11 years for the Broncos. They need to solidify that. They're paying big money to McGlinchey to do that. The second most money they spent was on Zach Allen, a defensive tackle. And it was interesting that they picked Zach Allen when push came to shove. It was Monday. The tampering period was open, and the Broncos liked Zach Allen at 15.25 a year more than Draymond Jones at 17.25 a year. That was an interesting decision. And then their third most guy, and really the first guy that signed, was a left guard, Ben Powers, $13 million a year. And it's also interesting that Dalton Risner doesn't have a job yet. He might be the best player out there that hasn't signed as a free agent.
Yeah.
But they got, it wasn't a splash. It was substance with their free agent signing. And then I think fourth was Alex Singleton, bringing him back, inside linebacker. They're tight end. Their tight end has 16 catches in like 10 years. He's a blocker. It's just all about winning the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Samaje Perine, 240-pound back. He's going to run over you. So they added physicality to this team. That's what Sean Payton did. He comes from the Bill Parcells School of Coaching, and Parcells believed in having men that could beat up your men to win football games, and Sean Payton is bringing that to Broncos country.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree more. I mean, you can obviously tell the offensive line, defensive line, they're just trying to win more than line of scrimmage. But that also is going to lead me to my next question for you. In your opinion, like, what was your favorite free agent signing? Like, the one that just made you say, "Oh man, I love that signing right there."
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. I didn't I don't love them. I observe them and I analyze them. I thought Stidham was interesting. 2 years at $10 million as their backup. versus going with, bringing back Teddy Bridgewater, who had a nice run with Sean Payton. Jameis Winston, they could have gone after him. He was released and re-signed by the Saints, but I think had Sean Payton made a play, they could have wound up with Jameis Winston. Andy Dalton was out there. They could have gone that route, but they went with a young guy, 4-year quarterback who hadn't played much. He had 2 starts at the end of the season, looked good in one of them against the 49ers. Who was that Houston quarterback? He was with Atlanta for a couple of years, and then he was the Houston starting quarterback for a couple of years in 2009. I'm looking it up right now on you guys.
Oh, Matt Schaub.
Matt Schaub.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
They're hoping for a Matt Schaub out of Jarrett Stidham.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the same type of thing. But beware, there was also Matt Flynn. Had a couple of starts with Green Bay. Went to Seattle on a big contract, and Russell Wilson beat him out. So this is an interesting sign for the Broncos as a backup to Russell Wilson. I think he's just good enough and young enough and promising enough to maybe push Russ to where if Russ plays 3 or 4 games in a row like he had at one point last year, he's going to be pushed. And Sean Payton may threaten him with this job. So we'll see about that. I think Russ is going to play well with Sean Payton. I really do.
Okay.
And but that was an interesting free agent move, the backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think we were all a little taken surprised by that. And like you mentioned, we did kind of expect either a Teddy Bridgewater or Jameis Winston, one of those guys, one of the more proven veterans with more longevity. But my next question leads to the receiver room. Lots of talks about these 2 guys over the last few weeks surrounding Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. I know you came out one of your recent articles and basically said that these guys are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be Broncos next year. But some people are out there still speculating on the Broncos still potentially kind of keeping it a secret, maybe that one of them gets dealt, whether it's days leading up to the draft or on draft day, in potentially a trade up. What can you say to these people that still feel like there's still some uncertainty that one of the 2 could be traded in the next few weeks?
Well, the draft is kind of the final hurdle for these guys as far as staying. There will be calls on what happens is now everybody's on pause, and they're assessing their own roster, and they're all going into the draft thinking, there's maybe 3 or 4 teams saying we got to get a receiver, and it's not, from what I understand, it's not a big receiver class. There's only 2 or 3 guys ready to start as rookies, and so if a team doesn't get one of those, they could call the Broncos and say, okay, we'll give you a first-round pick for Jerry Jeudy, which no one has offered. We'll give you a second-round pick for Courtland Sutton, which no one has offered. And that's where the Broncos are with those 2 guys. That's where they were when they left it. During the trade, when the trade talk was going on, Judy's price was a first-rounder. Sutton's price was a second-rounder. And no one was willing to go there for Sutton because of the $14.5 million salary he's going to make this year. And Jeudy, he played like a first rounder the last 6 games of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't enough body of work the previous 2.5 seasons. So people were offering second rounders for Jeudy, and the Broncos held tight. So we'll see what happens with the draft. I mean, Sean Payton came out emphatically saying they're on the team. George Paton then followed up and supported what Sean Payton said. I would say there is still maybe a 5 to 10% chance that one of them. By the way, it won't be both; it would only be one.
For sure. Yeah.
That one of them gets moved by the draft, but well. Right now, going into, the final, the 3 or 4 days prior to the draft, they're here. And if they get past the third round of the draft, then they will be for sure Broncos in 2023.
Okay. Yeah. So speaking about those two, if the Broncos were to move one, which one, in your opinion, would you think the Broncos would move?
Well, I think, yeah. And by the way, I doubt Jeudy. I doubt they'd move Jeudy.
Yeah, me too.
Because Jeudy, they get a first round. If you move Jeudy, where Jeudy came into play was when Alan Lazard, remember the Broncos made a play for Alan Lazard, and they finished second to the Jets. Had they got Alan Lazard, then maybe they trade Jeudy for a first round pick. Now you got 2 for 1, so to speak. Okay. Absent Alan Lazard, I don't think you trade Jeudy for a first round pick, because that first round pick is going to be better than Jeudy. Jeudy, these first round picks take a minute. They're drafted. Jeudy took 2.5 years before he became worthy of that number 15 overall pick. Mm-hmm. So, that's why I don't think Jeudy gets moved. Sutton with that $14.5 million salary, I can see the Broncos having, some possible motivation there. But again, they're asking for a second round pick, which is a second round pick plus that $14.5 million is a lot for another team to take on, and we'll see. It's possible.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Another guy, real quick, just want to ask you, Garett Bolles, he popped up in trade rumors. That really wasn't someone that you were reported on, but I know a few people were claiming that Garett Bolles is on the trade block by the Broncos. Was that actually something that was discussed by the front office? And I'm just curious, have they tried to approach him about a contract restructure at all?
No. The reason why Garett Bolles came up in a trade, speculation, is because his contract isn't guaranteed. I think he's supposed to make like $17 million this year, and only $2 million, which is injury guarantee. He's got a $2 million injury guarantee. If he passes his physical in time, it would be no guarantee. So guys like that, that's why Darby had $10 million salary, non-guaranteed. So they cut him. But in Bolles' case, they need him at left tackle. You're not going to get a starting left tackle in the third round of the draft.
Yeah.
You're not. They just had free agency. They didn't get a left tackle. So Bolles is going to be their left tackle this year. And that was just kind of I think that trade speculation started because of his contract his salary not being guaranteed, that he was vulnerable to trade. But they had other holes they needed to fill: right tackle, left guard. We'll see about center in the draft. And so you can't change everything. You can't change 4 positions. And so they're counting on Garett Bolles to be Garett Bolles at left tackle this year.
Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the draft real quick. I know the NFL draft just under a month ago. Which positions do you think the Broncos are going to attack with their 2 third-round picks in this year's draft?
Well, I've seen every mock draft hasn't taken a center with one of those picks. And center is historically where starting centers historically go in the third round of drafts. Late, from the middle of the second round on to the middle of the third round is where centers are often drafted. So, there's just a lot of smoke there. Cushenberry, I'm no expert on interior offensive line play. He seems fine to me, but every year they seem to want to replace him. And it was peculiar at the end of last year. They were running out of guys to activate from IR. And I think they had 2 more spots, and 3 guys were ready to come back. And I know one of them went to Chase Edmonds. One of them, I think, went to Randy Gregory, even though it proved that he wasn't ready. And Cushenberry said he was fully healthy and he looked fully healthy with 2 to 3 weeks to go, and they didn't activate him. Now, why didn't they do that? That seemed peculiar there. So that made him vulnerable. He hit his escalators and his salary, so he's supposed to make $2.74 million this year. That's non-guaranteed. That makes him a little vulnerable. The third round is historically a center position, so that seems to make him vulnerable. But again, Sean Payton said he is the starting center, so we'll see. If they don't go there, it's a deep draft, from what I hear from people who do these things, meaning George Paton. They're deep. It's a deep draft in cornerbacks, and the Broncos could use one more there. It's deep in offensive line, and then other people have told me it's deep at outside the edge rusher. So that's where I think you go. You go probably interior offensive line, corner, or an edge rusher. That's probably their pick with those 2 third rounders. If they don't use one of them to trade back and get more picks, because they could use they could use the next one more pick in the draft. They only have 5. George likes to have 7. He likes to have 10. And, he said that before. He likes to have 10 picks. So one of those third rounders could be trade bait.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So me and Amir, we've been studying a lot of the draft prospects. One position that we really did our work on was wide receiver. Do you think it's possible Denver could take a wide receiver kind of like in the later rounds, or, possibly with one of our third round picks?
Yeah. Again, it's not a deep draft. They do want one more receiver. They definitely do. They picked up a couple from the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton likes. Callaway played quite a bit for him in 2021 before he disappeared really with the new coaching staff in 2022. So he's a possibility there. I don't know if a quality receiver will be there in the third round. If one of the speed guys, if a KJ Hamler type falls to the early third round, see, that's one thing the Broncos do have going for them in this draft is they pick early in the rounds that they have. They pick early in the third. They pick early in the fourth. They pick early in the fifth. I'm not sure about the sixth. But so they pick early. And so generally those are the positions that a lot of teams jockey for. A guy will fall. And as soon as that guy falls out of a round, they really pounce to go get him early in the next round. And so the Broncos have a chance to, as George Paton says, they have to make hay. If a guy that they really like on their board somehow slips, they'll either go get him or they'll another team will go get him and they can move back and get some extra picks for special teams. Because they do want one thing Sean Payton has shown with Burton, with the returner and guy from Houston,
Tremont Smith.
What's that?
Tremont Smith.
Tremont Smith. He made a lot of special teams plays in free agency, and I anticipate they'll do that in the 4th and 5th rounds, 6th rounds of this draft too.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Mike, my final question for you today is: aside from those top 430 visits you listed in your most recent article for 9 News, who are some kind of guys in the draft in those rounds from 3 to 6? Who are some draft prospects you believe the Broncos have their eyes set on at? Which of those positions and specific players would you be banking on for the Broncos to take?
Yeah, it's kind of like I haven't paid that much attention. It's like a needle in a haystack. When you start that late, I'll give you a little preview to what my mystery mocksters come up. And by the way, this isn't me. This is the mystery mockster, but you've got he's got a bunch of centers. John Schmitz from Minnesota, Alu Watimi from Michigan, is another possibility. You've got Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin. You've got, edge rusher, the Kansas State edge rusher, in Dudike Uzama. I know I'm butchering the name. Marvin Mims is a receiver from Oklahoma who he's got. Running back, Kenny McIntosh. I can see him coming up with a running back. Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State. DeMarvion Overshawn is a linebacker from Texas who has already been in on a visit. And about the jackhammer. Coletto from Oregon State has also visited, and he kind of fits with that Sean Payton, multitask player, linebacker, fullback, tight end, started as a quarterback. Could be an exciting prospect for Sean Payton in the middle of the late rounds.
Yeah, Mike, thank you so much for coming on today's show and all the draft insight and everything, your thoughts on the Broncos, free agency and all of that. If you guys are on Twitter, make sure to follow Mike at Mike Klis on Twitter. Make sure you guys go show him love. Make sure to check out his articles at 9 News. He's got the best draft coverage and Broncos coverage in general. Without Mike Klis, Broncos Avenue would not be anything. I really do, appreciate you, all your work that you've done, for me being like a little kid and just keeping up with Mike Klis and all your news and updates. Like you really are. I told you before the show, we were just me and you chatting, and I really do believe that you are like the Ian Rappaport of Broncos news. Like you're that guy, and I really do appreciate all your. Yeah.
What about Schefter?
See, if I bring him up, everybody's gonna bring up the Tom Brady retirement stuff. And
Okay. That's high praise. I'm not that good, but I appreciate the comparison. I appreciate you guys. You guys are obviously very knowledgeable and up on the Broncos, asked very astute and pertinent questions about what the Broncos have recently done and what they're about to do in the draft. And it's just it's funny. It was way overhyped about Russell Wilson last year as a quarterback. And it's been underhyped, I think. There hadn't been much hype with Sean Payton. Broncos country. It's like Broncos country's bracing themselves. They're not going to get fooled again, as they say. But I think Sean Payton has a chance to be the guy that puts this franchise over the top for the next coming years. We'll see. We'll see. He's been out of the league for a year, and it's still about number 3. This whole thing, the draft, all this stuff, nothing matters. Only thing that matters about the Broncos in 2023 is can Sean Payton get Russell Wilson to play like Russell Wilson again? That's what the season's all about.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Last thing I want to say before I go is that, me and Amir, we really wanted Sean Payton. Like, that was our number one guy. As soon as we heard the news that he could be possibly coming out of, retirement. And, I wanted him last offseason, when he, retired. I'm like, can we get him to come out? But we ended up going with Hackett. It didn't go well. So now we got Sean Payton. But, you're 100% correct. I think, everybody's kind of underhyping us now. I feel like we got the guy. Sean Payton is going to make sure everything's all right. He's a Super Bowl winning head coach. His offenses are explosive. So
I was thinking Jim Harbaugh just because it wouldn't be a draft pick. Sean Payton was going to be draft picks, and he was actually a first and a second. And Jim Harbaugh is a proven winner also. But and the Broncos, it sure looked like the Penners went after Jim Harbaugh first.
They did.
Definitely Sean Payton was next, if not the best, considering the Russell Wilson situation. He was more qualified to get the best out of Russell Wilson than Jim Harbaugh was. And so we'll see. Can't wait.
Yeah, and I remember you called it in mid-January too. You, I think you were on like 104.3 The Fan. You said, if you had to guess, Sean Payton would be the next head coach, and me and Jordan kept saying it on the show as well. We really were banking on Sean Payton being the guy. So, kudos to you for that.
There are a couple of twists and turns to the search process, but that's where they wound up.
Yeah,
for sure.
But Mike, thanks for coming on, man. Just like Amir, I've been following you since I was like, I don't even know how old. Just keeping up with the news. You are for Broncos news, you're like the GOAT. Like you and Albright are like 1A and 1B. I give you all your props, man. You do a really great job at it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jordan. Thank you, Amir. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Appreciate you. If you guys are listening to today's episode on YouTube, make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe. If you guys are listening on Spotify podcast, make sure you guys follow, leave a 5-star rating. Let us know what you guys think about the podcast. Leave all your feedback and who you guys want, from my insiders to writers to players, who you guys want to see on the podcast. But I'm your host, Amir, with my coach, Jordan, and today's special guest, Klis from 9 News. Until your next episode, peace.